So I found something in an old project called Quiz. It's from November 2017, and right now it's April 2018. Now I'm playing this in fast forward, the video is playing in fast forward, but this is a quiz which gives you two possible answers. One is a red herring and one's the actual answer. And then a question at the top, and you bounce around things just for fun and then pick the right answer. And it ends up being pretty darn fun. And I made this quiz with initial questions about the endocrine system, and I actually learned a lot about the endocrine system, at least a lot of vocabulary about it, and got familiar with it. I'm pretty proud of that. And that was just goofing off with this game while I was creating it many months ago. It's got some element of spaced repetition as well. So let's take a look and see what I did. So if we look at what we have in the world, we've got some bumpers around the edges. We've got bumpy stuff manager and some bumpy stuff. Bumpy stuff is the stuff that bounces up into the air when you hit it. We've also got a warp plane, which would be better known as a safety net, because it catches you if you fall. And actually, it needs to be bigger and wider. Wider and closer up to the world. So if we turn these bumpers off and just leave a plane there, what you get with the Beldevere is you can roll around on a plane. And you can pick things up, collect them, if they're labeled as such with the right scripts. So let's take a look at the scripts. In the world game object, there's no scripts. In the plane, there's nothing. In the skybox camera, there's a rotator. In the bumpers, there's nothing. But there's also these funnel edges. They just bounce the objects back into the middle when they fall off to the side. The bumpy stuff manager definitely has a script, but I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. The bumpy stuff itself has a collectible sound script and an accelerator script to explode it up into the air. It really just compares to make sure that it's the player that it's bumped into, and then adds a force with the vector 3.up to blow it into the air. Then there's also a safety net down here, and if this gets too low, less than negative 300 in this case, then it destroys itself. Let's change it to negative 100. That's a better value in this case. The bumpy stuff manager is a different story altogether. There's a parent object which is called where to put the new children at the moment. That's what it's called. That's just for organization. There's a prefab to make copies from, a number of initial clones to make, and there's also the radius of the creation sphere, so we make it inside the playfield. Now if we look at the code, then for each one of the initial clones to make, we generate a new clone. Looks like we can generate a new clone with the H key as well. That's just a shortcut for debugging. To actually generate a new clone, we create a random position, and then we make the Y value of that position to be 10. And then we instantiate it. Now, where to put the new children is actually a parent. So I'm going to call it parent to hold new children. Finally, down here at the bottom is a way to instantiate this statically from other scripts. Now this field's going to change. It changed to parent to hold new children, and I copied the bumpy stuff transform into it. Now let's take a look at where the quiz questions actually come from. They come from a CSV file, and there's two classes that I made in order to read it in properly, and actually I used a CSV reader for the basic part. ASCII table reader and quiz generator. So the ASCII table reader has quite a bit of code. The first part's actually, it's going to load the CSV file twice. One time to count the lines in the file, and the other time to read the lines actually into the arrays that we make based on the number of entries that we find when we count the lines in the file. And it's going to create the concept of zones. This is so if there are like 100 questions in the CSV file, that we don't present them to the player all at once, because it's much better to take a small zone or set of them and let the player get used to those, and then build upon those bit by bit. And then we're going to need a way to keep track of what questions the player missed. This allows us to print the questions missed array for debugging purposes. These next two things, count lines in file and read line into array, those are the things that we delegated up at the top of the file here. Then there's format string array to allow us to debug easier. And then ways to get a random question index. And for the rest of these, there's a static accessor for all of these. There's getting a question given an index, getting an answer giving an index, and expanding the zone. This is so we can increase the number of questions that are in active rotation for the player. Now this is the collectible generator, or the quiz collectible generator script. And I've got a note here, intentionally constrain random to a small set, which will be increased as it sees you're mastering the existing set. That's about zones. And what that implies, though, is that this thing isn't actually increasing the zones. And I'm not sure whether it is or not. Let's see if we can find out. In the start method, we invoke a new round after 2 seconds. Now here in new round, we check the score to see if there's enough points in the level to expand the zone. So that answers my question. We do actually expand the zone. We temporarily display the last correct answer so the user can judge whether they got it right or not and see what the right answer was if they got it wrong. We clear things from the last round, and then we, a few seconds later, generate a new questions and answers. That's probably the biggest part of this whole class. This just clears those things out. And then generating the new questions and answers, there's the concept of a red herring here. And the red herring is the collectible dot that has the wrong answer. And that actually took me a second to figure out when I first saw this earlier. It instantiates and sets up the red herring dot. And since that one was random, we're actually going to pick another question that's random. That's going to be our actual question. And this while loop here has to determine that it's not the same random question as the red herring. Next, we set up the dot for the actual correct answer. Then this creates a new text dot with no text in it, and this gets a random position somewhere on the playfield. This next method utilizes getRandomPosition to get a random position that's not right on top of the player. This is called anytime one of the collectibles is picked up, and it actually analyzes it and determines if it was the correct answer or not. And this just clears pickups from the last round, so we can start over fresh. So when all that's put together, this is what you get. And I'm pretty darn proud of this, actually. I actually learned a lot, and when I was making it and going back in time and looking at it now, I'm pretty happy. I'm actually, I remember a lot of the answers to those questions, even though I haven't looked at it in months. So right here is a file name path to the CSV that has all the questions and the answers in it. So let's take a look at that. This is what it looks like. It's a CSV, so there's no formatting or anything in the actual file. But on the left is a vocabulary word, and on the right is a simple definition. That's all there is to it. And although the first line looks like it's formatted different, that's just an artifact of numbers bringing it up and making it look pretty. You can put any vocabulary here you want in any subject matter area that you want. So I hope you like this. I'm actually going through all my old projects and kind of cleaning them up. And if I find any other interesting ones, I'll definitely show them off in a video, something like this. Thanks for watching this. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like videos like this, subscribe to my channel.